My name is Kevin. And my wife's name is Tessa. We lived a happy life. We loved each other very much. One day, my wife's best friend invited her in the party. It was held in a hotel. My wife was really excited to go there. She asked me for permission. I said, "Yes, you can go." I trusted her and didn't think anything of it. The night before she left, she came into our bedroom while I was getting ready for bed. She sat on the bed next to me and I could tell she had something on her mind. She said to me, "Thank you for letting me go. I just want to go and have fun and support my friend who is getting married in a few weeks." I said, "Of course, have a good time." She then leaned in to kiss me and we went to bed the next morning. She left early with her friends. I did not hear from her much over the weekend, which wasn't unusual, but we did text to each other a lot on Sunday night. She sent me a text and saying that she was on her way home and would be home in a few hours. When she got home, she looked like she had a good time and she was very happy. The next day I went to work and my wife went to her best friend's house to help her get ready for the wedding. Over the next few weeks, my wife was helping her friend prepare for her wedding. She would leave work and go for her friend's house for a few hours, a couple of days a week. Then one day while I was at work, I overheard some coworkers saying something about a video surfacing about what went on at this party resembling the one my wife may have been to. I asked what they were talking about and they narrated this video shows a woman getting banged by two men at the party. At this point, I did not know who the woman was, but story sounded interesting and freaky to me. Over the next couple of days, I started hearing more people talk about this video and I was sort of curious to watch it myself subsequently. After work one day, my wife was not home yet. So I started digging around on the computer, going to different websites to see if I could find this video people were talking about. But I couldn't find anything. My wife came home a few hours later and I asked her about the video. She had a confused look on her face. She did not know anything about the video. So I laughed it off and said, "I wonder what went on at that party." I couldn't see my wife's face. The next day I went to work and as soon as I sat down at my desk, one of my co-workers said, "Buddy, have you seen that video?" I told him that I had not been able to find it. He pulled out his phone and started showing the video. It was the same video that people had been talking about. I was completely shocked. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It shows two men walking into the party with all the women in the background, cheering, and then the man started going around one by one dancing in front of all the women. I am still laughing because I assumed that's all that went on. But then the video keeps going and it shows one of the men getting really close to this woman who happened to be my wife. My whole manner changed. I was no longer laughing. She starts touching him and then another man comes up behind her and he starts touching her as well. It gets worse. One man picks my wife up over his shoulders and takes her in this room and other man follows my mouth it together. I couldn't believe what I was seeing in the end. Both men come out of the room with my wife follows behind them. She had a big smile on her face and she was not dressed up. I just sat there in the shock and I did not know what to do, but I gathered my composure and asked my coworker to send me the video so I can watch more of it later, which he did. I wasn't going to tell my wife what I just saw. I was angry and devastated at that point. She cheated on me with those two strange men without a hindrance, like it was nothing and I didn't matter. So the rest of the day at work, I was mentally wrecked. I couldn't even think straighter, but I finally got a hold of myself and made some phone calls. I called a friend of mine who is a lawyer and I asked him what I should do. He told me to take my time and think about what I want to do. But he also said if it were him, he would go ahead and file for a divorce straight after the bright conversation with my friend. I called a divorced lawyer to find out what I could do based on my wife's cheating and what she was entitled to. I told him we had no kids but we owned a house that we have a mortgage on and we both have jobs. He told me if I wanted to stay in the house, I could file a divorce and try to get my wife out of the house. But it would be a long battle and I may not win. So after talking with 2 different lawyers, I made my decision. I was going to divorce my wife and I would file for divorce the next day. There wasn't a damn thing she could say to me why she did that to me. And I'm thinking she doesn't even know about the video that night. I couldn't even sleep. I was too upset. I just kept thinking about the video and how my wife could do something like that to me. The next morning, I woke up early around 4 o'clock. I couldn't go back to sleep. So I got out of bed, got dressed in from there to work. My wife was still asleep. I did not even say anything to her. I told my boss I needed to take some time off. He could tell something was wrong, but he did not ask any question. I didn't return home while my wife was at work. I began to pack some of her clothes and I picked up a couple of suitcases and put them by the door. When I was finished, I waited until about 12 in the morning or so. I pulled out my phone, found the link of the video, sent it to my wife and it showed seen, had it right away. When I saw that I immediately FaceTimed her. I told her I wanted a divorce. I have already filed for it. And she needs to come get her stuff right away. She hung up on me and then she called me back about 5 minutes later. She told she was on her back home. I told her when she gets there, I will be upstairs in my office and I don't want to see her face when she gets home. She's crying and belling asking her in the hell did I get this video? I told her I'm not telling you that you just need to leave. She then said I am not going anywhere. This is my house too. She then said we are married. You can't just kick me out. I told her we won't be married for long. She gets on her phone and calls her best friend crying and telling her friend that I'm trying to kick her out of the house and I have video of her best friend tells her she needs to come over to her house and she'll call a lawyer for her. So hangs up the phone, grabs a couple of suitcases and leaves. Then her best friend calls me why I'm trying to kick her out of the house. I promptly sent my best friend the link, assumed that my wife had shown her. But apparently not. After my wife's best friend saw the video, she told me she would be contacting a lawyer for my wife and that I needed to leave my wife alone. I told my vice friend, "This is between my wife and me, not you. And for your information, I have already filed for divorce as the days go by." My wife is texting me, calling me, pleading and leaving voicemails. I did not respond at all. I then got a call from my wife's lawyer. He asked if I had a lawyer. I promptly gave him that information. He said, "Thank you," and hung up the phone. A few days later, I received paperwork from my wife's lawyer. It was divorce paperwork. I read through the paperwork and faxed it to my lawyer. I also emailed her lawyer letting him know that I received the paperwork. A few days after that, I get a call from my lawyer and I asked him, "What is my soon-to-be ex-wife asking for?" He then proceeds to tell me she's asking for half of everything, the house and one car. He said, surprisingly, she is not asking for a money. I told him her father is wealthy. He owns 4 hotels and a bunch of other businesses. So I'm pretty sure she'll be just fine. I then told my lawyer I want her out of the house and I want her name off on everything. He said that it is going to be a little difficult, but he'll see what he can do. A few weeks later, I am at work and I got a call from my lawyer and he said he had some bad news. He said, since her name is on the deed, you cannot just kick her out. And since she wants half of the house, you probably will have to sell it." I told him I don't want to sell the house. I love the house. It was our first home together. He then said the choice is yours. But if you don't sell the house, you will have to go to court and fight for it. So I told my attorney, I plan to fight for the house and I don't want to sell it. A few weeks later, I am served with divorce papers and a court date is set. I show up to court and so does my wife. We both have our lawyers with us. The judge asked my wife what she wants and she said half of everything, the house and one car. The judge then looked at me and asked my lawyer, "What does his client want?" My attorney said he wants a divorce and he wants her out of the house and her name off on everything. The judge looked at both of lawyers and then looked at us and then she asked us if there's anything we can agree on. My wife and I looked at each other and we both shook our heads. No. The judge then said here in Alabama, which is a non-fault state, can be fault-based as well. And adultery is one of those faults. The judge, who was a woman, looks at my wife and said, "Young lady, you committed adultery and I'm going to grant your husband a divorce on the grounds of adultery. I'm ordering you to move out of the house within 30 days, but you have a mortgage together. I can't do anything about that. You have to work that out with your mortgage lender." Then she said, "Sir, she can move back into the house if she wants. It's a marital home and she has a right to it. But if she does move back in, she has 30 days to move back out." The judge then looked at me and said, "I'm urging you to pay the mortgage until it is paid off or sold." The judge asked if there is anything else and her lawyer says that my wife wants one of the cars. The judge looked at me and said, "Is that true?" I then told the judge, "Yes, she can have one of the cars but she has to pay for it herself." The judge then said she can have the car after that. The judge grants the divorce after a week later after the divorce. My ex-wife sent me a text saying she'd not be moving back in. She just wants her part of the equity in the home and she'll sign the house over to me. I texted her back, "The only equity we have is $30,000. I would give her half of that once I finance SNC refinanced and all the other legal stuff was taken care of." I gave her half of the small equity we had in the home. A few months later, my wife's father died and she inherited $2 million from her family. Like I know it. She didn't need anything from me. Even if her father didn't pass away, she would have still been okay. Her father would have looked after her. But let me make it clear. I'm not going to take her back just because she inherited millions and she has tried to woo me. She has called and texted, begged me on several occasions, but I'm not going to respond to her and I will not. I know a lot of responses were to take her back because of the money, but I don't want to touch her nor her money. I don't think of her as the same person. I know as my wife and to this day, her best friend and my ex-wife still doesn't know who recorded the video at the cabin that weekend. Well, after all that drama, I'm a free man and also free from adulterous women. I was surprised at the responses I have been getting all this time. I hope my story helps someone. Thank you for your awesome support as a man in his 40s. I'm absolutely grateful that I did not have any kids with this woman.